So welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. It's our usual interview Sunday, and we're very happy to have another highlight of a guest on the show, a member of Imperial Triumphant, one of the most interesting extreme metal bands out there at the moment, Zach, or Zachary, however. So welcome to the show. Thanks for taking your time.
Thanks for having me, Thorsten. I'm very happy to be here.
So I have one very urgent question that always lingers in my mind whenever I listen to your band, whenever I read the lyrics, whenever I also look at your performances. And that is that your band seems to be like a bridge between old and new, antiquity and future. So the question is, which time period would you rather live in, 2,000 years ago or 2,000 years in the future?
2,000 years ago?
Yeah.
So the year 22?
422.
Or 422?
422 or 22.
You know what? I'm going to roll the dice and say 422 because I know what happened in the year 22, but I don't know what the year 422 looks like. So it could be more exciting to explore that. Take a risk. Maybe it's terrible, but who knows?
But I'm not wrong when I say that your band combines a lot of, let's say,
absolutely,
older topics with modern music, right?
Well, yes, I think that's a fair assessment.
Mm-hmm. And how did this thematic bridge come along? How did it happen?
I'd say slowly and organically.
Which is a good point. But is there anyone in the band who came up with the idea? Or was it like a real group process?
I'll tell you, I'd say it's probably a group process, but I remember pretty distinctly, let's say maybe 2014, I was walking down Central Park South, which is has a row of buildings and hotels that are all
Billionaires row.
Exactly. And there's a lot of Art Deco and older buildings, and I was kind of admiring all the sconces and doors and just all the accessories that these buildings had, and I just thought, like, that's pretty unique. I kind of feel connected to that, and I don't think it's something that's been explored too much in heavy metal music. It could work as far as like diving into that aesthetically, since we're a New York band. And that idea, but it wasn't overnight, and it's an idea that kind of grew very slowly, and definitely with the help of my bandmates and other artists.
So I wanted to ask that question anyway. I can also ask it now. Is living in New York an influence on your music?
Of course.
And could you also give like an example where you say, okay, not in this song or not in any track particularly, but where you say,
I'll give you the plainest example, and I think this is applicable to any band living anywhere, is usually when we write together, we will come into the studio and all three of us will be in not great moods because we just traveled via subway to get to our studio, and that's always a miserable experience. And then through the creation and the writing and the playing together, by the end of the rehearsal or the writing session, we're all in fantastic moods. And I think that's kind of, a very cathartic thing, writing music together, and then being able to channel that whatever personal or societal frustration we might be feeling at that moment into the music. I think subconsciously you're always going to write with your environmental surroundings influencing you. Nobody writes in like a true void, I think.
I met somebody a year ago, but he also had to move to the end of the world in a way. But that is like out, and even then, that end of the world influenced him. You're right. So when you are talking about it, it sounds as if Imperial Triumphant for you and your bandmates is like a cathartic thing to process living in New York City. Is that?
That's fair assessment. I think all art creation typically, hopefully, is something cathartic for the artist and something that they feel that they must do, but then they also feel good about getting it made.
So, I mean, like the picture that you're drawing is an ambiguous one, you know. In one way, you say you are definitely a New York band, and on the other side, you say that the band is a catharsis for the city. Is there any other city that you would prefer living in, or any other spot where you say, that might be nice?
Well, I mean, as far as living somewhere, yeah, there's tons of other cities that I'd love to live in, but I currently don't. But I don't know. Would the music be different? Possibly. I can't say.
So, do you also have like a favorite New York City spot to go to?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
I go to different places over different times, and there's definitely like different, mostly like either restaurants or bars or venues to see live music. But I don't know. I like to, if I'm not writing music, I'm mostly spending time just hanging out. And it could be at someone's house or at a bar or whatever.
So coming back to your band, Imperial Triumphant is on the one hand, on stage, anonymous. And on the other hand, it's not too hard to find out who is in the band. How does that ambiguity come, you know?
Well, I would say you basically laid it out perfectly. It's not that hard to find out who's in any band anymore. So our thought process was like, we're going to wear masks because it looks fantastic on stage, but there's no point in putting the effort of hiding who we are or our names or any of that shit, because at the end of the day, it's a few clicks away, and there's no reason to hide who we are. We're just musicians, you know?
But then the question is, why put on all the gear, all the masks? Why that, in some ways, theatricality on stage?
Because it looks amazing.
Good point.
I mean,
those masks. Yeah.
Why put in any effort is to put on an excellent rock show.
That is definitely true, and you do that. That is.
I think
true.
That the live image of the band directly reflects the music, and I think that's very important for bands to do, is to find an image that works for you and represents your music properly.
Something that also, of course, happens, of course, because of wearing masks and robes and costumes in a way. Everybody focuses on the music. You know, I mean, of course, it looks amazing, but it puts the music even more into the focus of everything else. And musically, you are obviously an extreme band, combining many influences. Could you name 2 or 3 genres and styles, or old styles, that are most influential on Imperial Triumphant?
Yeah, I'd say heavy metal, jazz, and classical.
Okay, I mean, like, of course, that is
and maybe I would go as far as to say not just heavy metal, but rock and roll in general has a huge influence on us. Classical, anything from Baroque, classical, romantic, or modern eras, and jazz, anything from early swing to 60s free jazz and everything in between, like bebop, hard bop, all that stuff is it's and there's and more. I would say, you know, even like the quote unquote world music, aka anything that's not Western, that stuff also plays a huge influence on us.
Very interesting. We'll come back to that. But something that also always crosses my mind when listening to your music, I always have a feeling as if it shows that there is a musical bridge between free jazz and mathcore. Are these styles that you guys like? Free jazz, mathcore, stuff like
I don't really
this?
listen. I don't think I listen to that. I don't know if I listen to that much mathcore.
Mm-hmm. But
Maybe
you do
more
know what I
free
mean,
jazz.
right?
Of course, of course. I think it's. I think really what Imperial Triumphant comes down to is we were really proficient at bringing influences from non-metal genres, whether that's, you know, traditional Northern Moroccan folk music or modern classical or 60s jazz, whatever. I think we're very proficient at bringing those influences and bringing them into a heavy metal lens or context without it feeling trite or cliched or forced.
Definitely. That is something that we should all agree on. I mean, like, when listening to your music, of course, one might identify several influences or things that you liked at that particular moment, but it's always Imperial Triumphant. And then the question, to me at least, is how hard is it to conceptualize and write these songs? Is that something really organic, or is that something that you have to work hard at?
I mean, it's always organic, but that doesn't mean that it's not hard work. And often it's, and many times it's something that comes out in like a spark, like a big flow, but then we'll spend months tinkering with the song and changing little things here and there and really kind of fine tuning it. And then sometimes it's always different by song, and even some songs we intentionally under rehearse so that when we get in the studio there's still that like magic of the first time playing it, you know. So it really like it changes a lot. We don't stick to any formula.
So Zachary, tell me, do you also, when writing these songs, do you also think about the necessity or the possibility of having to play them live?
Yeah, of course, because it's really fun to play them live. But of course, you know, we won't ever not, like, we won't write something. Or sorry, let me rephrase that. We won't not write something just because we think, oh, this is going to be too hard to pull off live. Whatever the song needs, the song will get, and we'll either figure out how to play it live later.
That is a very interesting thing, because, you know, there are some songs where I think, how can you play those live? But yeah, I can also imagine it just needs a lot of rehearsal, right?
Yeah, or whatever. It'll change.
Do you also if there is like a necessity to change little bits, would you change those to put them on stage?
I mean, pretty much every song that we've recorded has changed in some sense as we perform it live, you know, hundreds of times. And I think that's interesting. I'm really, you know, all of our songs from Vile Luxury, when we play them now, they sound completely different in more interesting ways, more exciting ways. And I think it's beneficial to the fans who have heard these songs already. Maybe they'll enjoy it more in a live setting that's not note for note exactly what it's like on the album. And many times I've heard this from fans saying, oh, your music's more intense live, or I actually understand I actually enjoy it more live. So I think if anyone listening to this is having a hard time getting into our music, I'd say come out to a show and it might just click for you.
Yeah, or if you're not able to go to a show, listen to the live record that you put out a few...
An Evening with Imperial Triumphant, released in 2021.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't it 21, right? Yeah, and that was a good example because listening to that record, one can obviously notice what you just said. The songs are different, but very,
Yeah,
very,
so
very
I'm
intense.
excited to see how these new songs change over the next few years.
We'll come to that. We have said now that you are a band in some ways between many chairs. You know, you combine old and new. You combine styles into your music that not necessarily go together, but you make them go together. That also indirectly implies that you are not part of any scene, so to speak, right? Or you don't see yourself as part of a scene.
What do you mean?
Well, you know, you're not really a jazz band. You're not really 100% only heavy metal band. You're not 100% only free jazz band. So you're not. Would you consider yourself being part of those scenes, or do you say no? We don't need that. We're our own.
Well, I would say we could probably fare well at a free jazz festival as just as much as a heavy metal festival.
That's true. But that doesn't
I think we belong
necessarily-
in. I think it's more the opposite. We belong in multiple scenes.
Good idea. That's not a way that I have thought about it, because I had perceived you as a very, very talented band in its own corner. You know, not necessarily even trying to fit into anything else. But the way you put it, of course, that is a very interesting idea. What comes first for Imperial Triumphant? Is it the album or the song? Is it the lyrics or is it the music? What is
You're talking about the writing process?
Yeah, exactly.
It's different every time.
Okay. For this new record,
like I said,
what was it for
every
the new
aspect of every album is different.
one? Okay. And with the
Every
new record,
song
what
is
came
written in a
first?
different way. Every album title is discovered in a different way. And it's always organic and not forced, and we try to make it as unique as possible.
So with this new record, what came first? Did you have an overall arching concept that you wanted to follow, or
Not at all. I think we just started, you know, Alphaville came out. We weren't able to tour, so we just started writing and getting together as much as possible, writing music, playing together, seeing what recording, you know, every jam session, just seeing what ideas pop up, and slowly songs started to come together.
So you say that you record every session. Do you also listen together to every session, or does everybody listen on his own?
Oh, I don't think we don't. Yeah, we don't record every session and then sit down and listen to hours of stuff. But it's just good to like record ideas, because sometimes you'll be jamming and you'll say, "Oh, that was really cool. Thank God we recorded it, because I don't remember it."
And so for the new record, was the single songs first? That came up, or
no.
a concept? It was a concept behind it?
You're saying, did we write the single songs first?
Yeah, the question is, did you have an overarching idea that you wanted to explain through the songs, or did the songs and the music come first, and then maybe later on you found a concept for the record?
It's like I said, it changes. Sometimes it's a song idea, a concept for a song, and then we'll write that song. Or sometimes we'll have a song and we'll say, "Oh, you know, what would be a really good idea for this song is to sing about this," or whatever.
There are also a lot of collaborations on the new record. Some are obvious ones, because, you know, like Colin Marston, Alex Skolnick, also Yoshiro Ohara. I think those are people that a lot of us would have associated with you, or where we say, okay, that is something that is cool and that also is expected. But I have to ask that. How big of a fan of Kenny G are you all?
We're not, I wouldn't say we're all huge Kenny G fans, but we know that he's a good player, and we're close friends with his son, who was a member of the band for about a while back. And we thought it would be interesting to have his son and him dueling on solo and on one track, and it kind of came together again very organically and worked out very well.
And it also sounds, just like you say, it sounds very normal, as if it happens not every day, but in a normal, regular fashion. That's a really awesome idea that you had there. Um, how did the other collaborations came about? Like Colin
We only
Marston.
well, okay. Well, Colin he's the producer, or was one of the producers and the engineer of the album,
Mhm.
so it's pretty easy to get him. And he's
Yeah.
a close friend, and we've been working with him for a long time.
Hmm.
Pretty much everyone that we have guests are people that we know, people that
Hmm.
we're friendly with, or people that we understand will be able to add something in. They know what we're trying to do.
Hmm.
So my drummer Kenny Grahowski, he plays with Alex Skolnick in a free improv band.
Hmm.
So, and we know that Skolnick is a monster player in the heavy metal world and the jazz world. So we knew that would be a great fit, and we're very grateful to have his playing on the record.
Mm. So that's also something where you say we need people that understand our music, right?
Yeah, nothing we do will ever be for the sake of putting their name on it. Like Kenny G, yeah, he's a big name, but he's also a great player, and I'm really happy with what he played. And we didn't just put him on the album to say that we put him on the album. I think he adds something to the song that benefits it greatly.
Definitely. I mean, like when you listen to that song or watch the video, it's amazing. I mean, of course, in the video
Thank you.
you notice his part, but it's also just a very, I would say, it's a very well flowing song, if you ask me.
Thank you.
And you also got an old hero of mine on the record, Trey Spruance. Tell me, how
Mm-hmm.
was working with Trey?
This is our second time working with Trey because he produced Alphaville.
Yeah, true.
And so it was like, I always say it was like going into the studio with Colin and Trey to mix the album was kind of like when you go back for your second year of summer camp and you see all your old friends again, and you're like, hey, what's up? It's great to see everyone. And we had a really, really great time mixing. And then Trey's solo was just unbelievable, and I'm really happy with how that came out. And again, we gave him very little sort of directions and just sort of said, do your thing, work your creativity, and it worked out really well.
I think that's also something that works very well with the way that you work. Let the creativity flow.
I have faith in people.
Good point. I have one last question before we come to our infamous quickfire round. What I like about the record is also that you work with, I think, 2 choirs, is it? 2 choirs, some strings. So let me ask you, how important is harmony and melody for Imperial Triumphant?
I'd say that's the cornerstone of music.
Yeah, but you also know what I'm hinting at. When I listen to Imperial Triumphant, I love it. When my wife listens to it, she just says, like, what a cacophony of sound that is. What I mean?
That's the dance, right? Thorsten, that's the dance that you, as a composer, get to play with, is how much, more traditional diatonic concepts do you want to introduce? How much cacophony, quote unquote, do you want to introduce? Mm-hmm. And that's, how chaotic it sounds is really a subjective thing for the listener.
That's true.
But it's our choice and decision to choose how much, like you said, like choirs and strings, how much of that is going to be, diatonic in a Western sense, or how much of it is going to be more microtonal or dissonant.
And when you worked with the choirs and the strings, did you also let them do their own thing, or did you give a little bit more of directions?
I think for the choirs, obviously, and the strings, yeah, I think we probably gave a little bit more direction just because you kind of have to, because it's so much layering involved that they need a little bit more direction. But having said that, both choirs and strings, everything that they did, they just knocked it out of the park. So it was also like putting our faith into talented people.
Which is a good thing, because the end result is just simply amazing.
Thank you very much, Thorsten.
Zachary, I have a few more questions, and we always end our interviews with those questions. It's, I give you two alternatives, and you have to choose one of them.
Okay.
So, the Yankees or the Mets?
The Yankees.
Miles Davis or John Coltrane?
Very tough, but I'll have to say Miles Davis.
I would have guessed that. I would have guessed that you would say Miles Davis.
That's a very tough one. That's truly impossible. But I think if I have to pick something,
I'll give you an easy one now. Italian style pizza or deep dish? Italian
style. Well, what do you mean by Italian style? Like Italian or New York?
Yeah. No, like, let's also say New York style pizza or deep dish.
Okay, New York, yeah. Because New York and Italy is different. You know, the Italian style is much more like personal and they eat it with a fork and knife.
Yeah, but still the way that New York pizza looks like a pizza and deep dish looks like a pie.
I would say
Staten
New York,
Island
obviously.
or Flushing Meadows?
I
don't care.
Flushing Meadows, I guess.
Top of a rock and Rockefeller Center, or the Empire State Building and its needle at the top?
I'm gonna go top of the rock because there's a bar there.
I would also go with top.
In the Rainbow Room, yeah, that's a really nice place. The top of the Empire State Building, while quite gorgeous and stunning in views, it's just a lookout. There's not much you can do up there.
Coming back to music, Mayhem or Venom?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with Mayhem.
Mm-hmm. Fantomas or Mr. Bungle?
That's impossible. I think I don't know, man. I think maybe Mr. Bungle.
Okay.
But I want to put out there that I'm a huge Fantomas fan as well.
I think that's... I mean, like, of course, I always also try to give some questions which are very hard, and that was the one where I would...
Of course, that's the fun of it all, I'm sure.
Yeah. As you like history, and me being a history teacher, I have to ask, what would you choose? Ancient Rome or Sumerian Uruk?
I think I would go... I like ancient Rome a bit more, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Movies, because I know that you like movies, and I still think that the cover of Alphaville reminds me, at least being a German, it reminds me a little bit of Metropolis by Fritz Lang.
It's definitely a nod in many ways.
When Harry Met Sally or Desperately Seeking Susan?
When Harry Met Sally.
Big or Ghostbusters?
Ghostbusters.
Another hard one. The Godfather or Goodfellas?
Ghostbusters.
Okay.
I'm kidding. No, I would say Goodfellas. I think that's probably my favorite, like, mobster movie.
Okay. So, thank you for taking the time, Zachary. I wish you all the best for the new record. It's an amazing one. It's once and again an album that you have to work into, but that's also the fun part of it. Everybody listen to it, and I wish you all the success you can have, and hope to see you on European stages very, very soon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.